Point in our life or another, we've all had time off our fitness and nutrition routine. For some of us, it could be just because we've had time out of work, but for others, it could be that you've been pregnant and you now have a little one. The big question is that I get asked quite a lot is where do you start? Because quite a lot of people try and pick up where they left off last time. Quite often, it's very tempting to go straight back into the routine you did do. Before you stopped. It can actually increase the frequency that you might get injured or that you might have to stop a training session. It can also lead to you becoming slightly demotivated because it's not very motivating to do a workout that you used to be able to do, but you can't even make a quarter of the way through. I understand it's so tempting to go out running and doing lots of jumping and lots of sit-ups and planks and press-ups because they do feel like you're doing lots and lots of work. Especially if after you've had 9 months off training and you feel like you just want to get back into something. But there is a lot more focus, a lot more smart training that you can do that isn't going to be detrimental to you getting your body back, you getting your posture back, and most importantly, your confidence and your core connection. Those doing a lot of running, a lot of boot camps. These types of fitness, they're great. They make you feel like you've done something, but they're quite generic, so they're not very tailored to the female body. If you have had separation of the abdominals or you have any core issues, usually the first thing to look at is what's pulling on your core muscles. And several of those are your chest and your biceps, your front of your thighs and your hip flexors. And if they're very, very, very tight, then they pull in towards the core muscles, which means that they don't allow you to utilize the core as much as you should. So during your pregnancy, as your baby grows, you probably have felt it, the center of gravity tends to shift forward as your bump gets bigger. So what happens is you slightly start to lean forwards, and this puts a lot of pressure on the back of the body. It means that the front of the body becomes very, very tight, and the back of the body becomes very long and weak, but it also becomes very tight. Something called your fascia, which is the skin connected around the muscles. So if you're having upper backache, or if you're having a lot when you work out, your front of your thighs kick in quite a lot, it does show that you're slightly imbalanced. What we want to essentially do is we want to pull you back into your heels so that your hamstrings, the back of your legs, your glutes, your upper back, and your core muscles then can activate properly. So initially, where we want to start you off is we want to start a routine where you open up and you stretch the chest, you stretch the front of the thighs, and you stretch the hip flexors. Now, doing this before you start any exercises will help you activate your back muscles, your core muscles, your bum muscles, and the back of your thighs. If you think of it as a tight band, like a resistance band, if your resistance band is pulling forwards constantly, if you haven't stretched that out before you want to use your back muscles, you're never ever going to really get the full range of movement of those back muscles. To get a better body fat burning and a better tone, you want to be able to use every single fiber of that muscle. Well, I know this all sounds really, really boring because whenever I mention anything to do with posture to anybody, they tend to yawn, and I do myself as well. I hate doing any postural stuff, but the matter of the fact is, we need to get you properly aligned to get you the core connectivity and the muscle tone and the weight loss if that's what you're after, as well as making you strong and functionally able to move very well. So you can do something called a superset. Now, a superset is where you basically par a front or a back exercise together, or a lower and an upper. Usually, if you want a more cardiovascular workout, but you also want to do some postural stuff, I would suggest you do a lower body exercise and then an upper body exercise. And what that does, it just pushes your blood pressure up slightly higher so that you have to get a much more cardiovascular workout. The blood flows around the body and you start to sweat. So, for instance, you've spent 9 months leaning forwards. The back of the thighs and the bum are very, very weak. So most of the time, if we ask you to do anything lying on the floor, raising your hips, and it's such a generic move and it looks really boring, but you try it and it's actually very physical and you actually feel very out of breath doing it. So one of the things you can do is you can do a hip raise on a Swiss ball. You can make it harder by doing one-legged. If you don't have a Swiss ball and you're at home, just use a step, use the settee. I use anything. Whenever I go to a client's house, the whole living room becomes a full fitness obstacle course. So you par that, and then you get off the floor, and once you've activated those back muscles, try and do some forward alternating lunges, keeping the spine nice and tall. And perhaps if you want to challenge the core, you take the chest out of that movement by putting your hands behind your head. So you've already taken out the chest, so that means your core has to work harder. You par those two together with, say, a 30-second rest in between, and you'll get a much more beneficial workout, much better tone, better posture, and you'll also get much more out of breath because you're using the muscles that are weak. So your body has to work harder. So it's much more beneficial than if you were going for a run. So in a lovely nutshell, where to start is to actually stretch out those muscles that are tight. You can do them as a routine on a daily basis, or you can do it before you work out. And then just find some exercises that work the back of the body, your hamstrings, your glutes, your upper back, your triceps, so that your shoulders come from this position to this position. You stand up taller, and find some core exercises that don't involve planking or sit-ups. Where to start? Do all of those things, and you'll find that your body changes much quicker. You feel much better. You can feel the difference in the next day when you have the muscle soreness, and you don't feel so weak. You feel much stronger.